To discuss ISIL is Daniel Cohen from Tel Aviv. He specializes in cyber warfare at the Institute for National Security Studies in Israel. We also have Hamid Abdel-Jabbar from New Jersey. He's a professor of Middle East Studies at Rutgers University. Joining me here in the studio is retired U.S. Colonel and intelligence and security expert Cedric Leighton, and Tawfiq Hamid, a one-time Islamic extremist and now an Islamic reformer. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Cedric, ISIL is conducting a recruitment campaign, trying to attract mainly young people, and if we looked at our report they seem to be successful. They've attracted something like 20,000 people to swell their ranks. What are the kinds of strategies they're using?
Well, I think what they're using more than anything, Anand, is a very clear, targeted campaign that goes after certain segments in society. So you're looking at people who are disaffected for various reasons. There have been a lot of studies that have at least purported to show that it's not necessarily a socioeconomic issue, but it's more a cultural, a religious, and a theological, in some respects, issue. So they are targeting people who have a tendency to want something in their lives that is missing. And it may be a spiritual piece, it may be something that is ideological, it may even be political, it may be a blend of all of those. And that is one of the key things that they're really looking for in this case, is a blend of all of those different areas. And that is what ISIS is I think, targeting at this point.
Let's go to Daniel in Tel Aviv. Daniel, you had a very novel way of putting this. You said that the mouse, that's a device we all use to navigate our computers, is the real weapon of ISIL. How so?
Because with the mouse, they can conduct recruitment to people. I will add also people that have lack of identity and oppressed maybe. They can buy new media capabilities. They can recruit them. Also, it uses them for propaganda and also for psychological warfare.
Tawfiq, you've been very critical of the West's approach to countering groups like ISIL, to countering groups like the Taliban as well. You say that the strategy relies on something you refer to as kinetic military confrontation. You say that is not working.
Yeah.
Explain that to us.
Let us see the reality. The reality is simply that the West has intervened to stop radical Islam, to stop the phenomenon of terrorism after September 11th. And the whole approach was depending predominantly on military approaches. And let us see the outcome. And by the fruits you shall know them. Let's see the outcome here is increasing terrorism in different parts of the world. More areas are now controlled by the radicals than ever. The Taliban is going to control Afghanistan soon. So the outcome of the pure military approach is simply, up till now, you cannot say it is success. And it is defined as being a relative or a failure to a great extent. What I am saying here is, I'm not saying we don't need a military approach. I'm not saying we don't need traditional warfare occasionally in this war. But what I'm saying is, what is the missing factor here? The missing factor in this situation is simply we fail to give the opponent sufficient deterrent to stop them from attacking us. Remember in World War II, for example, the Nazi Germany surrendered and the Emperor of Japan surrendered because the deterrent for them, which was death at that time, was sufficient to prevent them from continuing into this war. But for these radical Islamists, the Mujahideen, the ISIS group, the Al-Qaeda, they want to die. So simply by trying to kill some of them, it's not going to work, because they believe that they will die as a martyr, they will go to paradise and will enjoy forever. And this is actually their target. So you are actually helping them with that. What I'm saying, you need military plus psychological operations to give them strong deterrent to stop them from attacking us.
Hamid, there's a report in Monday's Washington Post which says that, and this is the headline in the Washington Post, it says, ISIL is fraying from the inside, beset by dissent, defections, and battlefield losses. Do you believe that to be the case?
Yeah, I think it's partially true. I mean, ISIS is thriving on the failures of the other side and not having a clear-cut strategy that go deeper into the root causes of the problem and address all the issues of injustice in the Middle East, in particular the question of Palestine, which is being for the last 10 decades or so, a kind of a source of grievances. And also what happened in Afghanistan, what happened in Iraq, and what's happening now in Syria. So I think the Western powers and the alliance need to put their act together and have a strategy that combine, as my colleague said, not only military means, but also political, social, and development means. They have to look into those issues that people are, in fact, complaining from. In particular, Iraq. The U.S. had left an Iraq that is completely in the hands of one party against all the other, the sectarian militias, which has thrived under the Maliki government for 10 years, and they've been targeting the Sunnis. So there was a pool of grievances that those people are thriving on. It's time to put an act together to address the root causes, to address all these issues together. The ISIS will never be defeated through military means only. You need also troops on the ground, and you need also to address the root causes that falls in depression, despair, sectarianism, and marginalization all together.
Right. Cedric, when we go back to ISIL's recruitment campaign, the slogan has been recruit, radicalize, and raise funds. And they, as I mentioned, have been targeting young people, teenagers specifically. These would appear to be people who are the most vulnerable, and some of them could be just out there to seek some kind of bizarre adventure out there. I mean, we just had a case here in the United States where 3 teenage girls from Denver were stopped from joining ISIL.
And you think of the place where they came from, Colorado, being a place where there is a lot of adventure that you can have naturally, and it's a different kind of adventure that they're seeking. And you look here in the Washington area, we have a 17-year-old who has been also implicated in recruitment for ISIL. So the recruitment piece is a key component to ISIL being able to do what it has done so far. They are, in essence, getting their manpower. But you look at the targeted population, and Tawfiq, you mentioned the Nazi Germans. Well, they recruited a lot of teenagers as well to be the foot soldiers in their movement. It is a common effort, actually, that I think movements of this type have, whether they're on one ideological side or another, or a particular religious aspect to them. They are going to go after the people that are in essence seeking adventure, that are looking for different things, that are trying to find a meaning to their lives. And in many of our views, that meaning is sought in the wrong place, but it is still something that resonates with them. And I think the challenge that we all have is to find a way to make things resonate for them in other areas.
Right, sort of in the wrong place, that's putting it very mildly. Yes. Daniel, you've made the point that airing these horrific videos that we see on our television screens, that we see on our computer screens of hostages, like the journalist James Foley, the US journalist who was, it was a gruesome video, him being beheaded there. You say that these have to stop. But how does one do that when these radical groups, these militants, have access to the internet? As was pointed out in our report earlier on, you can shut down the media if it was the traditional media, but you can't shut down the internet.
Of course you can't shut it out, but there are tools today that you can use to shut it down more quickly and more efficient. If the video, let's take the last video of the Jordanian pilot being burned, it was like between 7 and 17 minutes on YouTube, but it gave it internal life because millions and hundreds of millions of people saw it or were exposed to that. So that means that we need to narrow the gap of that 7 minutes, but we need also to confront the media centers that are producing this kind of videos in very high quality. We need to go to the source of it, to the mind that is behind it, and to counter him.
Tawfiq, you have made the point that a military solution by itself exclusively is not going to work.
Yeah.
So we look at ISIL, and they're using propaganda very successfully to recruit young people. So what should the West, what should countries like the United States be doing to counter this propaganda?
We need an efficient counter-propaganda system that uses what they deliver to us and use it to give the radicals a strong message of negative reinforcement. So I'm not fully with the concept of stopping them completely from releasing their videos, because the video represents reality. So by not by stopping the video, we are not actually stopping the reality there. We are just stopping them from showing it. Showing it has negative impact because it attracts some people to them, but it has another positive
But
impact.
why not stop the videos? I mean, we don't show videos of children being molested on the internet openly.
Yes, you cannot practically do this fully because the internet is so open. So practically it's not that easy to shut it completely. They can send the video from any other site through emails, through different ways. So you cannot really fully stop it with the curiosity of people to know. It's a bit difficult practically. But what I am suggesting is to use the video to bring to the opposite of what they want to achieve. For example, the videos that were released by the Jordanian, for the Jordanian pilot, was a video that could have been used as the base for a counter strategy to use this as a negative reinforcement, to tell them, because you did this, this is the outcome. So, and the outcome has to be negative in their eyes. The same for Charlie Hebdo in Europe, for example. The attack could have been used to create specific psychological warfare or operation to prevent the radicals from doing it again.
Right. Hamid, how difficult is it for us to get good information about battlefield conditions in this area that ISIL controls in Syria and in Iraq? The New York Times reported last Friday that Iraqi troops had moved towards the town of Doha. Then we also heard that Iranian troops and Iranian commanders are also involved in this offensive against ISIL. What is happening here? I mean, we're not getting clear information, and some of this information could be misinformation that we're hearing.
Yes, we don't have the true picture, especially from the area which ISIL controls in part of Syria and Iraq. Yes, we could get some satellite images, some word of mouth, as it is the case in the Middle East. But the real, what's happening there, especially with those people under the control of ISIL, they kidnap people, they disappear, we don't know what happened to them. They go, what we see was what has been shown on the internet or on TV, like the destruction of Mosul Museum, the destruction of the monuments of Nimrud. These are really, they created an outrage around the world. But what is happening with the people there? How they control, how they distribute, how do they keep security within the areas they control? How do they collect taxes? How do they generate money? How do they recruit those people? We are really, there is a missing link in that part of the world. So what I want to suggest also is not only to show the negative, but it's also to show the responsibility of those people in this part of the world and in the Middle East. I want to see a campaign to recruit more religious leaders to speak out and to have some more religious conferences that they speak against this kind of Islamic extremism, which doesn't truly belong to Islam. That is not the Islam we studied. That is not the Islam we know. That is not the real Islam that we've been practicing, right, and our parents, grandparents were practicing as well.
Okay, we are going to have to take a break right now. We will continue our discussion about the strategies, security and policies in combating ISIL. Stay with us, you're watching The Heat.